Let's go ahead and get started the way we do every single week. And let's start with gratitudes. And I am going to, if you raise your hand, I'll unmute you and let you speak. All right, Miss Susan, go ahead. Susan, go ahead and unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, I didn't realize I raised my hand, but I do have some gratitude. Something that I'm thankful for also. This is the first month that we've reconciled with Place, and Lacey, my ops manager, thought there was a horrible mistake because she saw where she was on blanks, and she actually didn't miss anything the first time around. So I am just so excited for her.
Well, that is awesome. Congrats to you and congrats to Lacey, and so thrilled. And you know what? Seeing Lacey grow has been amazing. She's been on a lot of the Hangouts. So Lacey, gratitude from all of us for jumping in and learning. All right, who else wants to share? We have a lot of hands up. Just give me 1 second. George, let's hear from you. Looks like you're still, there you go.
Good morning, everybody. I was really excited to share this morning and share my gratitude for all of you that welcomed me on my launch on Tuesday. I am typically pretty independent spirit and don't think that I need support all the time. And it felt so good to hear from everybody all over the country, and that independent spirit started to feel more of an interdependent spirit as I saw and felt the partnerships that I have around the country. And I thank every one of you that just took a few minutes to say welcome. I'm very excited and very grateful for all of you.
Well, George, we are so glad to have you in Miami. It was so fun to introduce you to the world this week. Love the attention that you got because you deserve it. You're an incredible leader, and we are so fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer, let's hear from you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
I am very grateful that my son and I made it through our first week of virtual homeschool without killing each other. So
that is a real thing. Well, I hope that being in this virtual environment has helped that a little bit, and we are thrilled to hear the good news and wishing you great luck with many, many more weeks to come. As Crystal said in the chat, I echo that. What a huge win. That's incredible. Okay, let's hear one more grateful. Going back to the hands, Jeanette Spinelli.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Jeanette.
Morning. I am so grateful to be able to have stopped in the middle of my day. I think it was Wednesday, in the middle of my day, which I never do, and have lunch. I know that sounds simple. Have lunch with my 84-year-old mother, which some of you all know I moved down to Austin back in October. And with everything happening, and you know, we just haven't spent as much time together as I thought. In place for my admin, the coaching that they have received from so many of you, too numerous to mention, and then also just the fact that they are independent thinkers and they're sharp and they were able to hold down the fort for me, which I know they can, but just relinquishing any of us that are control freaks, just kind of relinquishing that, you know, giving the reins over to someone else and feeling confident and comfortable that things are going to be done properly only comes from their hard work and your leadership. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Experience, and thank you to my team.
Well, Jeanette, that is such a beautiful story, and kudos to you and your leadership for attracting the right talent and for setting them up for success. And it's been a lot of fun for all of us to work with them as well. So that is awesome. Okay, so let's switch off as we do every single week and go to our Living Our Values, growth, our acronym of growth, giving, relationships, opportunity, wealth, and thanks. And as you start to raise your hand, I'm actually going to start with one. I am really impressed with Kathy Chen, a new agent on the Booker Group in Austin, Texas, who has done an incredible job of community already. Just in the second week of her launch, Kathy has already referred 3 or 4 of her contacts throughout the nation to other people in our Place network, and really impressed with her for engaging that community so quickly, and just way to go, Kathy. So thank you for that. Who else has a value that they would like to share? Carter, let's hear from you.
Good morning, Holly. Thanks so much. So I want to share a value of giving, and I don't normally brag on our team in Austin. I probably should do it more. Yet this week we had a team member that had a piece of equipment kind of go out on them recently, and our entire team banded together and pitched in and contributed money towards getting our team members something that they needed. I thought that was just a really great show of giving, and not to mention, obviously that's a money thing. Yet time and time again, when someone needs something, like meeting someone at the office and things of that nature, they just are so giving of both their time, energy, and their talents to everyone on our team. And so I just want to recognize all the Williams team for just being the great givers that they are.
Gosh, your team lives giving, and I got to experience that firsthand this week from Joel and Trisha. So echo what you're saying, and thank you so much. Okay, let's hear from you, Lori Belair.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to, can you hear me? You can hear me, right?
We can. We're excited to hear from you.
I wanted, this week I find myself having more escrows at one time than I've ever had in my life. And I also have one of the most difficult foster kids I've had at the same time. And I got to talk about the relationship that I have with my transaction coordinator, Luby, who has kept me sane, who has kept me on track, who has kept me up to date, who has saved my life 10,000 times this month. The relationship that she and I have is just really, really special. She can help me laugh when I am just about frazzled at the end of my rope, and she just takes care of the things I need her to do. So, you know, that's one of the 8,000 million reasons why I'm here at Experience, is I can't imagine doing this business without having such a great transaction coordinator like her.
Oh, I love that, Lori. And Lori, you said something so powerful. In addition to giving thanks, you demonstrated how you live our values every single day through your work with foster children. You're an amazing foster mom. So thank you for living our values, and thank you for that gratitude for Luby.
Thanks.
Okay, let's take one more. Zane, I see that you've raised your hand for a value. Let's hear from you this morning.
Good morning. This is Zane in Austin, Texas, with the Booker Group, and I wanted to go a little bit like to relationships, and I guess around for us, like the power of moments. So we've been working on being more intentional with just our Power of Moments campaigns, and yeah, it's shown up quite a bit, and in the past like probably month or so, and I really it's incredible to see our agents engaging at that level. I think back to Ashley Major on our team on her first deal. That was a FSBO that she converted to basically a $2 million listing that's now pending. These sellers went out of town, they came back into town, and she did this whole breakfast spread for them whenever they came back, just ready to go. And that was really nice to see, just at that level, like that, how much she cares about her clients, and that's carried across the team. And I'm excited to see more from the team in terms of our Power of Moments campaign. But I just wanted to, I guess that's a little bit of a gratitude too, but also how Ashley was showing up. And so, yeah, just wanted to give her some credit for that.
Well, Ashley, I got to see a picture of that spread, and it was amazing. And what a moment of growth that you jumped right in and started taking $1 million listings out of the gate. And Zane, we know that's also because of your coaching. So awesome job. Great way to start our Friday morning with lots of gratitude and growth. And now I'm going to turn it over to the main attraction, the reason we're really here, Mr. Chris Suarez.
Hey, Holly, thanks a lot. Sorry for my technical glitches this morning. And actually today, I'm not going to be the main attraction, nor am I any any day. But we're gonna have some really cool conversations with a couple of our partners. Today, I sent out a message last night saying that we are going to build a theme around coping with uncertainty, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. Before we did, I wanted to have a conversation about a word in our industry that shows up probably more than we wish it did, and that's the word Zillow. You know, it's hardly a week goes by where an agent, whether mostly not on our team, sometimes in the office, but where people say that, gosh, Zillow leads are just so good. Zillow leads are better leads. Zillow leads, why don't we buy Zillow leads? And this conversation isn't a pro or a con towards buying Zillow leads, but I was thinking about why people are so fascinated or love Zillow leads, or why Zillow leads are so good. When you think about a lead and lead quality, what makes one lead better than the other? Who wants to share? Holly, I'm not able to see hands, so you can just call on whoever you'd like.
All right, we're gonna have some fun today. Miss Katie.
For me, motivation.
Okay. So the lead's motivation to do something makes it a better lead. Awesome. You know what? I would agree with that. Now, how do we determine that? Or what leads that motivation? So that would infer that some leads have low motivation and some leads have high motivation. How do we know, or how does that change?
Keep going, Katie. You're doing awesome.
So I'd say that, how do we know? We ask questions, right? We've got to dig in to find out if they're ready, willing, and able. And ultimately, you know, some people just like looking at houses, and some people are, you know, just tire kicking. And at the end of the day, if we can ask effective questions, we can determine motivation or level of motivation.
Yeah, and that is the only way to determine motivation. And so if we take a step back and say, then what makes a lead better when we get that lead, or when we look at that lead? It's just that someone is doing a better job than us at gauging motivation, or staying in contact with someone during the time that motivation is building. Here's the deal. I hear all the time, Zillow leads are better, Dave Ramsey leads are better, effective agent leads are better, Redfin leads are better. And every time you say that, I want us to begin changing our conversation, or at least adding a line to that, because Zillow's follow-up is better than mine. Dave Ramsey's follow-up is better than mine. Effective agent's follow-up is better than mine. Redfin's follow-up is better than mine. At the end of the day, all leads are just human beings. We're all created equal. There's no inequality amongst leads, and yet we're convincing ourselves that that's the case. Just like people have convinced themselves, right? The same within communities because of how they've been raised, or what they've heard, or what they tell themselves. But the reality is, every single lead is equal. Anyone who is beating us on quality of leads is just beating us on the follow-up. When we think about that, every lead has a lifespan, right? There's a life of the lead. Now, Katie said, well, gosh, it depends on motivation. And motivation comes down to timing, right? When people are just started, maybe they're motivated, maybe they're not. But over time, right before someone buys or right before someone sells, they're at peak of motivation. And the level of follow-up we show up with day in and day out is going to determine the level of motivation our clients have. The life of the lead is always the life of the lead. So interestingly enough, Zillow has built one of the largest revenue engines in the country, not profit engines because we beat them there, but the biggest revenue engine, based on being willing to play the long game with their leads. By the time you get that lead, understand that lead has been engaging and engaging and engaging for sometimes 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, and then you get them. And then you convince yourself that it's a better lead. But that's only because you've allowed someone to beat us at our own industry. It's because you believe in their follow-up more than we believe in our own. And yet, as we look at our Brivity platform, some of you have been using it for years and some of you are just starting, that follow-up system is the best in the industry. Why? Because the follow-up system was built by agents. So interestingly enough, there's no better lead than the one that you have, as long as you're committed to the follow-up. I was talking to some time ago at dinner with Ben Rubenstein, who built OpCity into a $200 million acquisition company for News Corp, right? And News Corp owns Realtor.com. So they actually decided, OpCity decided to beat Zillow at Zillow. They decided to beat Realtor.com at Realtor.com. Why? Well, in effect, he bought quote unquote junk leads, right? If you talk to him, Zillow and Realtor.com and some of these sites sold him on pennies on the dollar their junk leads, at which point he beat them at their own game of follow-up and turned it into the tune of $200 million, guys. Interestingly enough, the company that owns Realtor.com, the company that he beat at their own game, bought that company back for over $200 million. So collectively, I will tell you, our databases, our Bivini accounts, we have more leads to follow up with than they did. It's just we're not beating them at their game. In fact, they're beating us at our game. So here's my challenge. I want every single one of us this week to look at our calendar at the end of the call, block out an hour every day this week to focus on just that, to focus on follow-up. Collectively, I know that if we have 500 agents spending collectively 2,500 hours in follow-up next week, and for that matter, consistently every week, your business would be worth more than what News Corp stole OpCity for. We can be better than OpCity at follow-up, guys, because we're in the business. We can be better than Zillow at follow-up, guys, because we're in the business. And that would mean that every single agent, even if looking at the value of OpCity, every single agent collectively, if it was equal, your database would be worth $400,000 today, tomorrow. And here's what we know, is business isn't socialist. It's an equal opportunity, but unequal reward. So remember, the value of your business will be determined, right? This is straight out of MREA, be determined by the number of names in your business and the relationship you have with those names. We don't build a relationship with anyone unless we follow up. Guys, the only place that we are going to get beat by other companies is our follow-up. The only reason why someone has a better lead is because they followed up and they played the long game. And interestingly enough, as now I'm collectively just looking at the number of people getting transferred into new bases, and we're sitting on 200, 300, 400, $500 million companies collectively. So as we move forward this week, let's make that commitment to follow up. Remember, no relationship is built on the first call or the first email. It's consistency over time. Speaking of follow-up, we're gonna have a quick conversation with an impressive woman named Jordan. Jordan, are you on the call? Holly will have to mute you, I think, or unmute you.
Sorry.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are y'all?
I am awesome. Well, I am introducing you. Many people know you because you've been with us for a long time, but I wanted to reintroduce you to our organization and introduce you to many people that may not have met you yet. Here's what I wanted to talk about. About maybe a couple months ago, you made the decision to say, I want to go through relaunch, right? You relaunched with us some time ago, and your business in 2019 wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be. At some point in 2020, you decided, hey, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to go through relaunch again or launch again. Why did you do that?
Honestly, I needed a boost. And when you talk about like coping with uncertainty, like that was really kind of, the year that we had prior. We had a really tough couple of years. I think within like a really short period of time, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. We had like several sudden deaths in the family. Lost my 17-year-old nephew. My 6-year-old son went through like a major medical emergency last year. And he's kind of battled some like reoccurring remissive brittle bone disease since he was little bitty. And then last September, he fell off the couch, like making a pillow fort of all things, and severely like fractured and displaced his arm. And I'll tell y'all, it was like a bad enough situation where I was really concerned on the way to the hospital if they were going to even be able to save his arm. That's how bad it was. And so, when you talk about things like coping with uncertainty, this was like the whole last year was like one of those moments for us. Hudson's issues obviously stem a little bit deeper than just being a risk-taking 6-year-old. And I really thought, I thought that I was pretty tough, but you know, a team of doctors telling you your baby is sick that's something that'll shake you pretty quick. And I think, you know, I was really good about putting on a brave face with, you know, I have 4 kids and, you know, 4 boys are looking up to you to, you know, to be that person. You make the outside pretty tough, but the outside definitely did not match the inside. So as far as like coping with uncertainty, I was not. And so I want to say it was just those few things that kind of had me off kilter, but it was definitely a lot more than that. I think I just allowed those places to kind of take me to a place where I wasn't really protecting my mind space from others or for myself. Just kind of got into like an angry and resentful state of mind, which is not me. And I've always kind of joked that I'm kind of a rainbows and unicorns kind of personality, probably why Holly and I hit it off so well. But honestly, I think I found myself in a place where I was not feeling very rainbows and unicorns, and that will affect everything. It's not just going to affect, you know, how you parent and how, you know, you're coping, but it definitely affected my business. You know, woke up every morning feeling like I was drowning almost, and then, you know, you're barely treading water and somebody hands you a brick, and that's kind of what it felt like. So I think that those dark places in your business and in your, you know, personal life can kind of sneak up on you. It's like a slowly yet suddenly kind of thing. And you can't get out of that place the same way that you got into it. You know, we get into that place slowly by making just, you know, incremental habits for the worse every day. And but I think you have to get out of that place quickly. It has to be a decisive choice that this isn't for you anymore. Kind of like removing a Band-Aid. You just have to, you know, change your perspective and change what you're willing to tolerate. Your standard has to change. And I think we talk about often how it's, you know, crazy that, you know, we won't always meet our goals, but we're always going to meet our standards. And so, you know, for me, that's what relaunching meant. It wasn't really starting over. I don't think that's what relaunching means. It's not a fresh start. The timer didn't start over. Our problems didn't go away. Those medical bills didn't disappear. You know, my son still needs bubble wrap, but, you know, I think relaunch is exactly what it says. The definition of launch is to start or set in motion. I already did that once. I've already had successes. I know the direction. Relaunch was just like a round 2.
Yeah. You know, I love, Jordan, is you said that it was a choice, and it's sometimes hard in that moment to believe that, hey, I could just choose to change. And yet, I'll just share just some quick numbers, because you clearly chose to change. And I want to maybe dive into beyond the mindset. We all believe that mindset is right, 80-90% of it. But since June, when you stepped back in and said, hey, I'm going to relaunch, you've signed 14 listings, you've pended 12 homes, you've closed 5 of those already. That was not normal for the previous 3 months, 6 months, 9 months in your business. And yet it's become the new normal as we've watched you over the last 90 days. What's been the biggest win? I mean, besides making the choice that, hey, I'm going to be different, what did you do different, Jordan?
Well, I guess, you know, I kind of feel like I'm starting every day with the same question. You know, today, like, am I okay just staying exactly where I'm at right now? And I won't lie, there are a few days where the answer to that's yes. But the majority of those days, the last few months, the answer's been no. And so asking that question every morning when I'm getting up and making a decision around it has made a huge difference for me. It motivates my follow-up conversations. You know, I'm not having these conversations out of desperation. I'm having these conversations out of, you know, there's intent behind it. You know, I'm not just calling my sphere just to shoot the bull. There's some intent behind it. And I think just getting up and asking that question every day is, you know, whether or not I'm okay staying exactly where I'm at, or whether I'd like to move forward. You know, on the days where I want to move forward, I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So activity wise, where's most of your business come from then? Like where has it been coming from in the last, gosh, it's only been 10 weeks, 12 pending, 14 listings. Where did that just show up? It didn't just walk in the door.
No, it definitely didn't. I think a good 90% of my business right now, based on tracking, is coming from my sphere. We still, I mean, we've had great success with open house and things like that in the past. I think that's a great way to add, you know, those people to your database and your sphere. But for the most part, you know, for me, I'm a soccer mom and baseball mom and PTA and, you know, church and all those things. That it's just been following up with those people and having intentional conversations, you know, genuinely interested in people's life. And right now is a good time for that. You know, people knowing that they've been or cooped up in the house, you know, for 3 months, and knowing that maybe their 4 walls are a little bit smaller than what they'd like. And so having those intentional conversations in my follow-up about, you know, how have you guys been coping with the last 3 months and those kinds of things, I think just having those intentional conversations with your sphere can make a huge difference in your follow-up.
Yeah. What I'm going to share, and my biggest takeaway of watching you, Jordan, is you always show up for other people, though, right? Last year you showed up for people. You were part of the PTA. You were always at your kids' games. You were engaging with the school. You were engaging at church. But the difference is that when you made the choice to do something different in your business, then your conversations with your sphere got intentional. And it wasn't about using your sphere for business, but it got intentional that you can serve people while also serving your family and serving your business and having intentional real estate conversations with people that trust you already. And so when people say, oh my gosh, 90% of my business is from sphere over the last 90 days, does that mean I'm not doing my opens? Or does that mean I'm not making my calls to my expires? Or does that mean I'm not doing my door knocking? No. But remember, those are all one in follow-up. You get lucky at an open house day one. You get lucky at the first call of the expired. You get lucky on the first physical. You get lucky on the first door knock. You get lucky if you can have a Zoom conversation and land the client. Because follow-up builds trust, and trust, right, will cause them to act or work with you. You have built trust over a long period of time, Jordan, with your sphere. And the only difference is now you're ridiculously intentional about asking how you can serve them in their real estate. And what you're going to see as you consistently do what you're doing right now for the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 10 weeks, Jordan, is that people love you and trust you, and they want to work with people that they love and trust. And now you're showing up consistently as successful in an industry that they need help in. It's magic when you do that. It started with your mindset. Then you made a choice, right? You have a life filled with uncertainty for sure, even within your health and your family. And yet those choices have made you get ridiculously intentional. And interestingly enough, every single person can have the results that you're having, right? Like, I know you and you're special, but we're not that special, right? We all can do that. We all can pen those 12 in 10 weeks. We can all take 14 listings in 10 weeks if we're being intentional about it. And you've shown up. Like when you said you were going to relaunch, you've shown up, you've done the activities, you've done the scripting, you've done the follow-up, you've made the calls, and that's what's caused the result. Anything different or anything you want to add, Jordan?
You know, I guess the best depiction I could give of like what relaunch meant, because I think that matters, and it mattered for me. So I'll be quick, but I don't know if any of you guys follow boxing or not. That's what I did in college and high school, and I've always kind of forever joked that I had a little like minor case of Napoleon syndrome. I've always been kind of small, and I was raised by a single dad with all brothers, and so if that tells you anything, but I think somewhere around like the 4th grade, I decided that meant like I needed to learn how to throw a punch, and eventually that led to me, you know, a semi-pro boxing career in high school and college. And I think most of us by nature are pacifists. I know that I am, but I think what's really amazing, what happens to our brains when we're kind of backed into a corner or we feel a little bit of pain is pain is really like the quickest way to stimulate a reaction from our brain. The second you feel pain, your body like immediately releases like this chemical cocktail of like 6 different hormones, including like testosterone and cortisol. And basically it's like your brain's in-house EpiPen. And y'all, I think I've fought on tickets before where I was, you know, backed into a corner, probably losing by points. And I think it's pretty amazing how motivating, you know, a little pain can be when you allow for it to be. And so when I say it's hard to fight yourself out of a place that you won't admit that you're in, and you know, being transparent and coaching and those kinds of things. I mean, honestly, if we refuse to recognize the things that that we don't like about where we're at, what motivation is there to change them? So I think for like me, it was as simple as that, is just looking around and realizing that I don't like this place that I'm in, and changing what I was willing to tolerate every day. But sometimes I think we need a little bit of pain. We need to recognize that it exists so that we have that shot of adrenaline, so that we can, change what we're willing to tolerate.
Love it. Jordan, thanks for sharing. Thanks for being who you are. Thanks for being part of our community. And double thank you for just for making a choice and showing up for yourself and your family. I've just loved watching your success over the last couple months, and I know everybody here is rooting for you and supporting you and loving watching the success as well. So
awesome. Thank y'all.
All right, Jordan, we're gonna continue with the conversation about coping with uncertainty, and then we're going to have another conversation with someone that has probably has crushed uncertainty. I want to share some research with you guys. We're going to go through this quickly, and then I'm going to share it with the community as well, socially. But I read an article by Christine Carter. She's a psychologist that has studied the effect of uncertainty on human beings for some time. She's written many books. She has written a lot of, mostly around children, and how to bring certainty to children when they have uncertain upbringings or family lives. One of her most popular books is Raising Happiness. She wrote another book called The Sweet Spot, How to Accomplish More by Doing Less. I think all of us would get something from that book. But she shared this recently in an article. She said, research shows that that uncertainty in our job tends to take a more significant toll on our health than actually losing our job. Think about that. There's a lot of people in our world that have lost their job. And yet, interestingly enough, it's the uncertainty of possibly losing it that took a greater toll on people's health than actually knowing that you lost your job. In a similar research project, participants who were told that they had 50% chance of receiving an electric shock felt more anxious and agitated than the participants who believed they were definitely going to receive a shock. See, when you know something is happening, you know what you're going to deal with, you know what you have to do, or what's been handed to you, it's a lot easier to handle that emotionally and mentally than when there's uncertainty. So there's now entire industries devoted to filling in the blanks of our futures, right? There's astrology apps, there's consultants, there's strategic planning, there's conspiracy theories that try to eliminate any uncertainty from our minds. But she says in her writing that there are 7 things that we can do to conquer or thrive in uncertainty. And I'm going to go through these real quick. Number 1, don't resist. She said, this current reality won't help us recover, learn, grow, or feel better. Ironically, resistance prolongs our pain and difficulty by amplifying the challenging emotions we are feeling. Guys, instead of resisting, she says, practice acceptance of what's currently going on, acceptance of potentially not knowing what the future is going to bring. She gives an example. She says, you might find your partnership, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's your partner, your significant other, to be really challenging right now. But instead of criticizing or blaming them, right, which are tactics of resistance, criticizing and blaming, that's resistance, we could calmly just accept that our partnership for the time being is a bit challenging. And that doesn't mean, she says, that you won't feel frustrated or disappointed. But a big part of acceptance is accepting how we feel about difficult circumstances in our lives right now. So number 1, it's don't resist. Number 2, invest in yourself. She said in times of uncertainty, you need to invest in yourself. The best resource that you have right now is making a contribution to yourself such that you can make a contribution to the world. Invest in yourself. She said, we oftentimes underinvest in our body, our minds, our spirit, and that leads to stress around uncertainty. Number 3, and this is what causes more uncertainty for many of us. She said, find healthy comfort items. One of the most important ways we can invest in ourselves is to comfort ourselves in healthy ways. Now think about it. Oftentimes when we're dealing with uncertainty, how do we comfort ourselves? Well, not with the healthiest choices, right? It's we're sleeping in, we're eating differently. She said, if we're to stay flexible, we need to feel safe and secure. When we feel uncertain or insecure, our brain tries to rescue us by activating our dopamine system. We're going to talk about that next week, guys. We're going to dive deeper into that. But uncertainty oftentimes drives dopamine, which drives stress. So there are foods we can eat that actually drive serotonin levels in our body, which bring us calm. Now, some people try to achieve that calm by drugs, but the reality is by choosing health choices, healthy ones, you can achieve calm in that uncertainty. Number 4, don't believe everything that you think. I love this one, guys. Don't believe everything that you think. She said the most essential stress reduction tactic that anyone has ever taught her was not to believe everything she thinks. In uncertain times, it's even more important, guys, not to believe thoughts that argue towards the worst case scenario. If we always think about worst case scenario, guess what? We will begin to believe what we think. Number 5, pay attention. She said, pay attention. The opposite of uncertainty is not certainty, it's presence. Let me say that again. It's straight out of her book. The opposite of uncertainty is not certainty, it's just presence. Instead of imagining an unknown future, bring your attention to your breath, bring your attention to right now, bring your attention to what you have today, bring your attention to what you're doing now. In her book, she said, even when things feel like maybe everything is outside of our control, we can still control what we pay attention to. Number 6, stop looking for someone to rescue you. In times of uncertainty, stop looking for someone to rescue you. You know, it's interesting. Even as an organization, we are getting into business with people slower right now in the last 6 months. Why? Because in times of uncertainty, sometimes people are looking for a magic pill. Sometimes people are looking to be rescued, and we don't want to rescue people. When we act as though we're powerless, we get trapped in narratives that leave us feeling angry and helpless and trapped. Now, in times of uncertainty, finding phenomenal partnerships, right? Being part of a team is probably one of the most certain things we can do. So there's incredible value to what we are building collectively, what our teams are doing for each other. But again, we're not here to rescue each other. Although it can feel good when other people rescue us, most rescuers don't really help. In fact, she said our friends might want to save us because helping other people makes people feel good and their intentions might be noble, but rescuers tend to be better enablers than saviors. So, are you rescuing someone or are you enabling them? If we stay stuck, they get to keep their role as our hero and they get to distract themselves from their own problems. So be careful that as we look for people that are rescue us, we're not doing them a favor instead of doing ourselves a favor. And number 7, find meaning in chaos. Find meaning in chaos. Social psychologists define meaning as it applies to our lives. This is the definition of meaning, and all of us have a different one perhaps. But the definition from a social psychologist is this: it's an intellectual and an emotional assessment of the degree to which we feel our lives have purpose, have value, and have impact. So do our lives have purpose? Do our lives have value? Do our lives have impact? The reality is everything can be uncertain around us, and we can still be having impact, providing value, and having purpose. Right? The other piece of that meaning is they said humans are best motivated by our significance to other people. So we all need relationships. We all need to be significant to each other. We all need people. And on that note, this conversation of people and how important other people are to us in times of uncertainty, our team, our family, our friends. I want to introduce you to one of our partners. Chris, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. We have a pretty special story from one of our own today. Chris Shook and his wife run a incredible business, the Shook Home Group out of Tacoma, Washington. And as I'm speaking, we posted a video that we want everyone to watch, and Holly's going to put it in the chat, and we posted it on our Slack channel. It's a video of actually some time ago, Chris. Maybe let's go backwards, Chris, and
Sure.
and you and your wife were running a business really together, right? As partners, and she wasn't your wife yet. You were just about to get married, and what happened right before the wedding?
Sure. Yeah, so we go back to about, I want to say right around the beginning of 2012. And that's about the time that Heather, at that time was not my wife, as you mentioned. We decided to, she was in real estate for a while, and I was in real estate. We decided to, form a team and come together. And at that point, as we were doing that, we were on the exact same time we were moving forward with the plans of getting married and going through that process, and already putting the down payment on the venue, and all the planning and everything that's involved. But during that time of 2012, I knew that there was something that wasn't right, with me. Your intuition kind of tells you that, hey, something's not quite right, and yet I didn't feel sick, and I wasn't showing symptoms of being sick. I took, the liberty to go and visit my doctor and have some tests run, and the doctor says, hey, you're fine, don't worry about it, nothing to worry about, and go on your merry way. And so I do. And at that point, I was also beginning training for a show, a men's physique show. And some of you might know what that is. And as I was kind of going through that process and preparing for a wedding, and we're doing, and we're doing the business and kind of getting the business up and running, and everything was just kind of, at that moment, our whole world was just, we were on top of the world. It was just, everything was going smooth, everything was great. And yet I still knew there was something wrong with me, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. So a few months later, I decided to go back to my doctor, and that's a doctor I've seen for 12 years. So this doctor knows me. Same thing. I said, hey, listen, I something's not right. There's something going on, and can you run some more tests, please? And he said, yeah, well, sure. So they do more blood work and all that stuff. And he says, yeah, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And I said, all right, well, I guess I trust you. You're a doctor. So again, I go about my merry way and continue life, and kind of realize that several months later, well, we're going into about a year of this. So we're kind of getting towards the end of 2012, kind of going in the beginning of 2013. And at this point, again, I don't feel sick. I don't have the symptoms of, the dry cough or night sweats or, lack of appetite. I've always had a really strong appetite. I don't have unexplainable weight loss, except the weight loss of purposely trying to trim down for a physique show, and no fever, no nothing. I wasn't showing any signs of anything, except I knew there was something wrong with me. And I went back to my doctor, and it was that moment that he said, I need to get you to a specialist. And so at that time, as we're preparing for a wedding and we've got our business running, and I can, elaborate a little bit more on the story, Chris, but I that was kind of that moment where, where Heather and I were feeling like we were on top of the world, but the next visit to the doctor was not the news that I wanted to hear.
Okay. So let's get to that moment.
Sure.
What news did you get?
Well, as I mentioned, when I, was visiting the doctor that I've known for 12 years, and him finally telling me that I need to go see a specialist, this entire time I was convinced that there was nothing wrong with me, because I was probably in the best shape of my life. At the time, I was 42 years old, I think, 41, 42, right in that time period. And again, I didn't feel sick. I thought if you're going to be ill or you're going to have some sort of disease, there's going to be some sort of symptom or something that you're going to feel other than just knowing like something's not right. And so when I went to go see the specialist, I was joking with him and, saying things like, hey, it's probably the Tacoma water that's causing my lymph nodes to be swollen, or, maybe it's the new cologne I bought that's causing, the lymph nodes all over my body to be swollen and not normal. And he looked at me and he said, I'm not gonna BS with you, Chris. He goes, you have cancer. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm not sick. Look at me. I'm in great shape here. How can I have cancer? You don't even done anything yet. You haven't even diagnosed me. Why you tell me I have cancer? And he says, well, I can tell by all the lymph nodes and where they're swollen at. It's signs of lymphoma. So, at that moment, well, that's that moment where you kind of like, you don't want to hear those words, you have cancer. But at that time, I was not quite convinced that that was what I had because I didn't feel sick. I didn't have the signs that you think people have when, they're battling cancer or have cancer. And so I said, well, I've got to get you into surgery right away. We've got to do a biopsy real fast. And I said, well, I've got a show I have to do that I've been training for a long time. And he said, well, what's most important to you? What's more important for you, Chris? Is it the show or is it your life? And I said, well, of course it's my life. So at that moment, not at that moment, but within a few days, I was in surgery, had to wait an entire week to get my pathology reports and diagnosis back. And so you want me to continue kind of sharing, Chris, what we talked about as far as the next step in that journey?
Well, you get that report.
Yep.
And tell us what the doctor told you. What was your diagnosis? You didn't just have one type of cancer.
So you have to wait an entire week for pathology. I mean, I don't know if it's normal, but it just seemed anything that I got worked on, like PET scans and certain tests. It's like you've got this week, and it's like a week from hell, right? Because you are just, your mind is playing tricks on you, and you go onto Google and you start looking at stuff, which is the worst thing you can ever do. And so I tried to keep a strong mindset through that and just keep myself busy. And when I came back that next week, because they didn't want to tell me over the phone, they wanted to tell me in person, I knew in my mind that I was prepared that he was going to say, yeah, you it's for sure you have cancer, right? Because he told me, he said, you have it. So I was prepared for it. But when I walked into the doctor's office, I noticed that the doctor's nurse, made eye contact with me when I first walked in. And when she made eye contact with me, she immediately dropped her head and looked down at the floor and would not make eye contact with me moving forward. And that moment, and she had this look on her face of like just sadness. And I thought, uh-oh, that's not a good sign. And so, and they call me back into the doctor's office, and I'm sitting there, and the doctor comes in, and even he looked white as a ghost. And this doctor knew my parents. And so, and he was real quiet. And so I'm there again. I've got this sense of humor, so I'm joking with him. And he finally said, Chris, as you know, we got the results back, and as I told you, I mentioned that you have that you have lymphoma. He goes, but the results came back, and not only do you have it, but you have 2 kinds of cancer, and one of them's not good. And it was that moment where you kind of see in the movies or TV shows where the doctor's talking, but you can't hear him anymore. Their lips are moving, but everything in the room just goes silence. And that's what happened to me. And I remember getting up, and I walked over to the window, and I was just staring at the window. And my wife, at the time it was my fiance, came over, and I remember her putting her hand on my shoulder, and then everything kind of snapped back, and I was thinking, okay, I should probably listen to the doctor. And I go sit back down, and he shared a few things and kind of told me what, the direction that we were going to move towards and what I need to do. And I left, and I got about 2 or 3 feet from the front door of the office, and I lost it. I just, that's when it really hit me, and just broke down right there at that moment. And ended up at the, car, sat the car for a while. Again, went back on Google, and should have done that because I started reading stuff about the type of cancer they were saying that I had. And that was that was the wrong thing to do. And remind you, this entire time I was training for a physique show, so I was depleted on carbs and and yummy foods and all this kind of stuff. So the first thing I thought is, I'm going out and having pizza and beer. That's what I'm going to do. So go drown my sorrow. So but the beer didn't even taste good. It kind of sucked. And so I fast forward, Heather and I had to make a decision, and we knew that I had to get help really fast, and we also knew that there was a wedding coming up, and we were contemplating on what we should do. Should we maybe put the wedding on hold? Should we cancel it altogether? Should we just focus on my health? And I said no. I said not at all. I said we're not going to let cancer dictate our lives here. I'm going to move forward. We're going to move forward. We're going to have this wedding, and I don't care what it's going to take. Even if we have to do it in the hospital, we're going to do it. So we moved forward towards that.
So let me ask you this, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you shared with me that I think is a really valuable lesson for us is you said that you're a private person, and initially your thought was, I'm going to tell my family, obviously, I'm going to tell a couple close friends, but I don't want to have this conversation with other people. I don't want to talk to other people about it. You didn't decide to do that. Why didn't you decide to do that? And then what resulted by you making the decision to share your story?
Well, yeah, you're right. I very private person. I don't really like to share too much. And I remember, discussing with Heather at the time, I said, we're just going to keep this quiet. I don't want to tell anyone. Obviously, family needs to know. We'll tell a couple close friends. But other than that, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to tell anybody, and I don't want anyone to know. And a close friend of mine who's in the industry, who battled cancer herself and survived, pulled me aside and said, Chris, you have to tell people. Don't do this to yourself. Don't be this way. You need to let people know what's going on. You need to give people the opportunity to help you. And what's going to happen is that's going to get you through this. It's going to help. It's going to inspire you. It's going to inspire others. So don't be selfish, and make sure you let people know. And I said, you're right. You're absolutely right. And as hard as it was, I wrote a story, and I wrote something very detailed from the heart. And I took a picture of myself at that moment of looking like a completely healthy person, like nothing's wrong with me. And I blasted it on social media, and I didn't expect to get the response that I was going to get. And that response, really steamrolled and turned into something huge down the road. But it was that moment that I realized I can do this. I can do this with the help of others. There's going to be people that are going to push me and motivate me, and they're going to carry me through this. At the exact same time, I don't want to let them down. And what I realized is I ended up becoming an inspiration to them. And not only, I was an inspiration to them, but they were an inspiration to me.
Yeah. One of the things, Chris, that I think is one of the most valuable lessons of your story is that by sharing what you were going through with others, you said it motivated you even more to beat it. Yep. Not just for you, but for them. As people helped you, it pushed you into this, maybe 3 weeks ago on our call, we talked about commitment. And when we make a verbal commitment, when we make a public commitment, we are more committed to that commitment. And by sharing, you're committed to live. Now, the other thing I wanted for you to share, Chris, is you talked about the role of visualization and what visualization did for you during your journey.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. As I lead to that real quick, I just want to kind of add a little bit to where, after the diagnosis and having to go, to Seattle Cancer Care. If anyone's familiar, Seattle Cancer Care up in Seattle here is one of the top, cancer centers in the country. And, upon meeting, oncologists and the medical, staff up there, and going through much more testing that's involved, including bone marrow transplants and those types of things, bone marrow biopsies and those types of things, that, it came down to where, it was diagnosed. I did have the two. However, what I didn't know is that I was stage 4. And that kind of leads to where I knew at that point I had to make some really, really tough decisions at that point. And I knew that I'm going to have to do some things that are going to get me through this, because I remember asking the doctor, again, if you remember at the beginning of my story, I wasn't showing the symptoms of, unexplainable weight loss, night sweats, fever, dry cough. There was nothing. It was the only thing that caused me to figure out what was going on was being persistent with my doctor, because I had swollen lymph nodes that wouldn't go away, and they kept growing, and they were spreading more throughout my body. So I remember asking my oncologist, what if I wouldn't have been as persistent as I was? What if I didn't go and challenge the doctor and say, hey, listen, there's something wrong with me and you guys need to figure this out? And if I just went on my merry life because the doctor kept telling me that I'm fine, and I trusted the doctor at that moment to think that I was fine, I said, what happens if I didn't do anything and I'm here where I'm at right now? And he goes, you'd be dead in 9 months if you didn't take care of this. And so at that moment, I knew that I had to make some really strong, because most people, I shouldn't say most people, I take that back. You have two choices. You can go sit in a corner and you can feel sorry for yourself, right? And waste away. Or you could just take it head on and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take it head on, and I'm going to conquer this thing. And then it becomes this mindset thing. And so with the visualization, Chris, is that I did a few things. One, I started journaling. There was something about the therapy of journaling, getting every single day, I would journalize the feelings that I was having if I was feeling sick or those types of things. And then the visualization part, I started kicking in. And the story I know you want me to get to is that I would lay in the chemo bed in this room all by myself. And I had a port. They put a port right here in my chest, and then they would pop the chemo thing, into the port. As I would lay there, I had a choice, and I would sit there and think, I'm told, some of the most toxic stuff you could ever put in your body. So instead of thinking of it being a poison going into my body, I would literally visualize it being something that is a cure, that is a medicine. And so I would close my eyes, and I would actually, as they would stick the port in and they would pop it in there, and you could see the chemo start to come through the hose and it starts to enter my body, I would literally, my brain would focus on that this is a healing medicine, and it's not a toxic or a poison that's going through my body. And I don't know, positivity, visualization, journalizing, have a sense of humor, being super arrogant and cocky about beating it, whatever it was that caused me to beat this, I chalk it up to a lot of those things, as well as people who were there, the support, that inspired me and motivated me, and those types of things.
Yeah. Guys, just a couple things. I'm going to ask you one more question, Chris. As you and I talked, I recognize the power of community. I recognize the power of commitment to ourselves, but also how we are more committed to a group, to our teams, to our families, to our friends. So connecting a goal to other people is one of the most powerful things we could do. I also realized the role that visualization played. We've talked about that a lot here, but visualization saved your life, buddy, right? You visualized getting better. And people say that's mindset, but next week, after our talk, I've spent probably 4 or 5 hours researching just visualization and the power of our eyes and how our eyes connect to our brains. And I can't wait to share that with you. But let me ask you this: your mindset, your what you got through, how has that influenced the rest of your life and your family?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously, beating something that you're not supposed to beat, and surely it changes your life. It changes your perspective on things. It changes what some of the silly things that we would get upset at, or what we would, take for granted. You realize that those are just petty things, and you realize that how much, how precious life is, and I've been very grateful and thankful, and God has blessed me blessed my family, moving forward. And I think one of the biggest things for me is being a survivor. I know that I can do anything. There isn't anything that I can set my mind to that I know that I can't conquer. And it doesn't matter. It's like we could go back to when COVID hit, and up here in the state of Washington, we were shut down for, a week and a half. We couldn't do anything. We weren't essential. And it's the mindset of just switching gears and knowing that, hey, you know what? I beat cancer, and I beat stage 4 cancer, so I can do anything. There isn't anything that's going to stop me. If we're going to have these things and these curveballs thrown at us in life, I'm going to figure out a way to get through it. And I go back to that cocky, arrogant attitude that I had when I was battling cancer. Like, bring it on. I have cancer, bring it on. I'm going to beat you. So, and it was just that attitude and that mindset that I had that just powers me through things. So, fast forwarding to today, I get up every single day, and I'm thankful and I'm grateful, and I get to kiss 2 boys and a wife every morning when I leave to head to work, and I have something so meaningful to come home to every single day. So short story, that's what it's done for me.
Well, Chris, I mean, thank you for being willing to share a story. Thank you for actually having the story to share. I want to just give an incredible thank you as well to Heather, because you don't get through something like that without someone so supportive by your side as Heather was. And I think that is the story we didn't go into deep today, but we're going to in the future. And we're blessed to have you both in our community. And I think it's serendipitous that you have built your entire life because you have it around being experiential, that you show up and realize that, hey, every day that we have is not just a given, and it's the mission of our company, and as our company has then merged and collided with yours and the rest of your partners. I just think I'm so thankful to have you as part of our community and being willing to share the story. And I think there's not just life lessons, there's business lessons, but incredible lessons of just strength and focus. And it's no wonder and doubt that you run such an incredible business with such a straight and focused and committed mindset, my friend. So thank you for being willing to share. Our community is better because you're here.
And thank you everyone for all the comments and the opportunity that I had a chance to be able to share this today. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to call on you again, my friend. All right, guys, we're just a few minutes late. I thank you for staying with us. I told you you'd want to. So appreciate everyone on the call. Thanks for the collaboration. Again, sorry for my tech issues earlier, but let's make it a great week. If you need me, you know where I am. Chris, once again, thank you. Jordan, once again, thank you for sharing as well. Let's make it a great week, and we'll talk again next week. Thanks, guys.